Bonjour. Alors, for this week or this module, we are going to see the passé composé with the verb être. So, in module 5, we saw how we do the passé composé. And what is the passé composé? Basically, it is composed verb. So, you have to have two verbs. The first one is avoir or être, and we call it auxiliaire. And the second one is going to be the past participle of the verb that you are going to conjugate. So same thing when it comes to the verb être or the auxiliaire or the helping verb être. It is the same thing. You're going to have the present tense of the verb être, which is je suis, tu es, il est, elle est, nous sommes, vous êtes, ils sont, or elles sont. You're going to have to put the verb être in present tense, and it is going to work as a helping verb. And then you add to it any other verb that you want to use in the past. Same thing when you have the verb, same as what we saw in module 5. When you have a verb that ends with an er, replace the er with an e with the accent. When you have the verb that ends with an ir, replace it with an I. And when it comes to the verbs that they end with an re, you will have to replace the re with the u. The only difference between verbs in the past with the verb être compared to avoir is that we saw that avoir, the second verb, it does not change at all. You always keep the e with the accents, the I or the u. But if you have a verb that goes with être, you're gonna have to be careful with the feminine form. So if, for example, if the person that you're talking about or the person who is talking is feminine, you will have to add an e at the end. So basically, if I have an e with an accent for feminine, I will have to add another e, and then I will have to have another e next to the I or after the I, and an e after the u if the subject is feminine. And if it's plural, doesn't matter if it's masculine or feminine. If it's more than two, which is when you use the vous, when you use nous, and when you use il or elle, which is they for male or mixed or female, you will have to put an S for the plural. So that's the only difference between avoir and être. And of course, there are a list of verbs that they go with être and they do not go with avoir. And I am going to show you that. So let's go to the next slide. So again, I did talk about the difference between the passé composé with avoir and the passé composé with être. And as I said, the only difference is that you add an e for feminine form and you add an s for plural form. And there is a specific list of verbs that they go only with être. Same thing as what we saw before. There's a specific list of verbs that they go only with avoir. How are you going to do it? How are you going to memorize or know which one go with être, which one go with avoir? You're just going to have to memorize them. And with practice, you will get used to know that, oh, this one goes with être. And of course, I remember that I shared with you last year the website Le Conjugueur. When you are using the verbs in the past, especially when you're writing your sentences for your final for the final for this unit, use the website, use Le Conjugueur to double check and see that you got the verbs correctly. So here you go. When it comes to the verb être, the verbs that they go in the past with être, we call them, let me try to pronounce this word, Dr. and Mrs. Vandertrump. So it means basically every single letter starts, it's the beginning of a specific verb that they go with être. We did not learn it when I remember when I was in elementary and middle school. We didn't learn it like this, like Dr. and Mrs. We just learned, we call them les verbes d'état, like in the French-speaking countries. So, or I know that even here they say like the house verbs. Basically, it means that most of these verbs, you see that like going upstairs, going downstairs, those verbs that they go with the verb être. So the list is, or the verbs are devenir, which is to become, rester, means to stay or remain. Mourir means to die. Revenir means to come back or to come again. Sortir means to go out. Venir means to come. Arriver means to arrive. Naître means to be born. Descendre is to come down. Entrer means to enter. Rentrer means to go home or to go back home. Tomber means to fall. Retourner means to return. Aller means to go. Monter means to go up. And partir means to leave or depart or depart. And I forgot the verb passer. Passer means, of course, to pass. So we're going to practice. So I have these sentences. So for example, if I want to say I was born, I know that born is the verb naître and it is irregular. So this is when I said that you will need the website Le Conjugueur because there are some verbs that they are not regular. Same thing in English, like to think, for example, is irregular in the past because we don't add an ed at the end. It's thought, so it is irregular, so you just learned to remember or to memorize it that way by practicing. So I was born, je suis né. So if I'm talking about myself, since I'm female, I will have to have that e, I will have to add it. So it's gonna be, the spelling will be e with the accent and another e. So I came home, for example, je suis venu, and again I will have that e for female. I entered, je suis rentré. I stayed, je suis resté, and all of them they're gonna have an e at the end because of the gender. I fell, it means je suis tombé. I left, je suis parti. I went, I went means je suis allé. So I am going to correct, mix these two. So I'm gonna move this one, je suis allé here, and then je suis revenu. I'm gonna move it there. Here you go. So I will try to move that one. Oh, sometimes it's really, yeah, it's not gonna, okay, I'm just gonna copy and paste it. Oh, it didn't. Again, sorry about that. It happened last week too in the other, when I was doing the other folder. So here you go. Let's make sure that the translation is correct. So I went means je suis allé, and then I arrived or I came back. I'm going to change it. Wow. I came back means je suis revenu. I arrived, je suis arrivé. I went up, je suis monté. I went down, je suis descendu. And then I went out, je suis sorti. I died, je suis mort. And then the last one is that I went home, je suis rentré. So these are the examples of the verbs that we saw. Again, here is the summary of the rule with the examples. Is that, remember that you have to have two verbs. The first verb is going to be either être or avoir. Since we're doing être, so it's going to be at the beginning in present tense. And then we're going to add the past participle of the second verb. And here you go for the verb to go. Je suis allé, which is I went. Tu es allé. You went, il est allé, nous sommes allés, vous êtes allés, and then ils sont or elles sont allés. And then the second one is je suis sorti, tu es sorti, elle est sortie, or il est sorti, nous sommes sortis, vous êtes sortis, ils or elles sont sortis. So remember that for nous, vous, and il, no matter what the gender, you're going to have an s. The only thing that you're going to have to be careful with is that the female. If nous, it's all female, you will have to add an e. If they're mixed, you do not need to add an e. So you only add the e for the female if the whole group is female. But if they're mixed, you keep the masculine form. And then descendre, which is to go down, is je suis descendu, tu es descendu, il est or elle est descendu, nous sommes descendus, vous êtes descendu, and ils or elles sont descendus. And remember that there are some verbs that are irregular when it comes to the spelling of their past participle, like venir, to come back is venu, mourir, to die is mort, and then naître, which is to be born, is né. So, and I added another link to a summary of the verb être and avoir in the passé composé and how to do it. So this is the link that I added. Feel free to print it and to have it next to you when you're doing the assignments, because this one has the summary and the steps too. So that's it when it comes to the passé composé with the verb être. And we are going, as I said last week, we are going to be practicing the past, and not only in this unit, we are going to see it again this year. And if you have questions, let me know. Au revoir.